I'd like to wish you the best. Thank you. And
to celebrate. Students need to recognize the grievous errors of our past so as not to repeat them. No event in the history of man, in the history of people, is probably as deplorable or is as deplorable as the Holocaust. No event stands as a stronger example to any one of us of people's inhumanity to people. No event stands more strong as a
Property me and Brad bought up on a ditch bank there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you feeding at, or where do you want to feed it? All this won't have much of an impact on the deer herd. Those groups of deer that are reached will definitely be benefited, but we can't reach enough deer to make a significant difference. Next year, at best, we'll maybe be able to reach 20% of the deer with deer food, and that would mean next year maybe a 5 or 6% increase in the deer population. So it will have a little impact on the population, but
And they're off to the Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament. For thousands of hockey kids around the state, the trip to St. Paul is the pinnacle of their high school hockey career. It's just as awesome for parents who sat in the stands year after year.
This has to be one of the most exciting things I think we've ever experienced. I would say it's a climax, yes.
This is very exciting. Our son's a senior this year, and it's a nice way to go out of the year for him.
For the Duluth Central Trojans, it's even more exciting. They haven't made an appearance at the tournament since 1954, and these kids feel the magic of the St. Paul Civic Center.
Most of all, it's a great feeling to be out here in front of this atmosphere, and we just want to go out there and do our job.
It's great for our team, and it's great for our school. Get some tradition back in our school for the hockey program. It's just great.
And of course, only 2 teams come out state champions, but just being among the elite players in the state is quite a feeling.
We're just real happy to be here, and it's a good way to end our hockey career.
Is increasing or decreasing, the news is bad. When you're looking at handguns and to carry concealed weapons for safety. Were shot before the citizens with a fraction of the training that police officers receive are going to defend themselves with a concealed weapon? No matter what the circumstances are, while murders with other weapons decreased by 3%. Then an FBI study showed that 85% of police officers that have been shot were shot before they were able to fire their own weapons.
I saw a fire, you know, and I assumed it wasn't a bonfire because it was so big. So I drove into his driveway and I saw that was his house, and that's when I got in my car and started breaking the window, trying to look for him.
From smoking bans to health warnings, in recent years it's become harder to find a place to smoke and harder yet to enjoy a cigarette. As a result, many smokers have turned to prescription drugs as a tool to help them stop.
Well, we believe that we can safely give this product to adults.
The product Don Aird is speaking about is Nicorette gum. The Food and Drug Administration has just approved over-the-counter status for the gum. Soon you'll be able to buy it at your grocery store or local pharmacy. But Nicorette will only be sold to people 18 years of age and older.
Yeah, the real risk we saw here was that children would become addicted to nicotine by going and purchasing this. And now we believe it can be done safely.
Nicorette gum provides a low level of nicotine that helps reduce the craving for a cigarette. It may also work to reduce other cravings associated with kicking the habit. If you're an adult and would like to use Nicorette gum, experts say it's important to read the warnings, follow directions, and be on the alert for side effects.
If they're having GI problems, if they're getting anxiety attacks, or the main problem would be getting too much of the drug.
The FDA also warns people with significant heart disease should speak with their doctors before using Nicorette. No one should chew the gum and smoke at the same time.
High school girls basketball team, the trip to this year's state tournament is a chance at a dream.
I've always wanted to go to state. It's been my goal since I was a little girl when I started playing, and I don't know, we've had a great team since we were little. 7th and 8th grade, we were undefeated both years, and we knew we had a great chance. We had to keep it up in the summer and work very hard.
And did they ever work hard? The Bombers defeated ESCO last Saturday, the only team they lost to all season long. And today they got a first-class send-off from hundreds of proud fans.
Oh, it's very exciting. It's a dream come true. We wanted this so bad, and we were just waiting for this all year. We can't believe it. Actually, right now, we still can't believe we're going down there.
For the Lady Bombers, this is their first ever trip to the state tournament. And for the community of Barnum, this is one trip they'll never forget. Just take a look around the town of Barnum and you'll get the idea. They love their Bombers.
Yeah, everybody's showing their support. Well, they beat ESCO, so now they say they can beat anybody, so they're going to take it.
And even the bank in Barnum is behind the Bombers.
Oh, I'm very excited. I went to the game Saturday night and it was just a thrill, and I came home and whipped up the signs. We're right on the corner spot downtown where everyone sees them. Yesterday we had shirts for sale and I had a shirt in the window.
The Bombers open play in the state tournament Thursday afternoon in Minneapolis, and almost everyone from Barnum will be there. School has been canceled for the next 2 days, and even some businesses plan on closing.
It's not going to be busy anyway. Everyone's going to be at the game.
In Barnum, Ann Carroll, Channel 6 News.
This is the commute. 15 steps. I get up and I grab a cup of coffee and I come in here and fire up the machine.
Mike Austin answers all sorts of computer questions for IBM. Instead of working out of some cubicle in a big building, he works out of his home.
I don't have the stress of driving in traffic. You're getting to work and you've got everybody running around you going crazy and hectic. Here it's just very peaceful.
He's what's called a telecommuter, a person who commutes through the phone lines and airwaves instead of highways and freeways.
Normally she comes and sits up here by this window.
He can do his job through a computer, so it really doesn't matter where he sits to do it.
If they ever call me back in the office, I don't know what I'm going to do.
For NBC News, I'm Hari Srinivasan.
Northlanders have seen it all this winter. We have had record cold, including a new state record low of -60 at Tower, to one of our snowiest winters ever. We are just under 20 inches away from having the snowiest winter ever in Duluth. As spring brings warmer temperatures, a new weather threat enters the picture, and that is flooding. This year's snowpack has been unusually deep and has raised flood concerns at the National Weather Service, as Craig Sanders explains.
We're looking right now with the snowpack that we've got. We could also have a repeat of those significant floods if we get normal melt and normal precip throughout the rest of the spring.
Also, because we have had an early snow covering the ground, the top layers are much more sponge-like and cannot hold much water at all. This means more runoff and potential for flooding.
This is about the 10th, one of the top 10% snow years that we've had. So if we melt that off and we get any rainfall on top of that while it's melting, we could have some significant flooding in the Northland.
We are better prepared, though, thanks to Doppler radar. Advanced warning will be better than ever thanks to Doppler, which measures precipitation much more accurately. In fact, it can measure amounts per square foot. We have, in essence, gone from 50 rain gauges to thousands of gauges. The peak of our flood season is not until the 3rd week of April. Right now, the flood risk is moderate, but all it takes is one heavy rain or snowstorm and a prolonged period of thawing to cause flood problems. In Duluth, meteorologist Mickey Prangley, Channel 6 News.
ABC for Reuters. Our second item is now ready and it's being rushed to the feed point. There may be a little bit of bars between the end of this item and the second one just as we set it up, but it's ready.
Not a riddle. Listen, I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Odyssey of the Mind is a creative problem-solving competition where kids get together in teams of 5 to 7 kids and they solve a problem. They're either performance problems or vehicle problems or structures problems. And this is an international competition, so all teams all over the world, all across the United States, each get the same problem.
This is the last painting I will have to steal.
It's called Great Impressions, and we have to make a painting. And like, we're rodents, and we the painting gets stolen, and then we figure out, like, with poems and clues and stuff, to figure out how it was stolen or who stole it.
I'm a detective, and I'm supposed to solve the case. And I'm a squirrel, and it takes place in the 1800s, so I'm like a Sherlock Holmes person.
Call the police! Wait! I am the police!
In our play, a painting gets stolen, and I'm the thief, and I'm supposed to, like, they're not supposed to know, and I'm supposed to get away and live in a life of luxury and style, but they figure out my little plan.
Of course! We should have suspected her from the start!
And they spend several months putting it together. The kids make their own sets, and they develop their own dialogue and their scenery and their script. And then they have 8 minutes to perform it, and that's what we're doing here today, is judging these performances.
The Mackinac spent the day breaking out two harbors, Silver Bay and Taconite Harbor. Shippers there hope to haul taconite later this week, but it's not going to be an easy trip. Much of Lake Superior remains covered with ice, and in some places, wind has stacked ice upon ice, creating windrows as high as 14 feet.
Those are very high and very difficult windrows, and even the Mackinac couldn't go through those. They had to go around them. So they saw extensive windrowing, and the lake will be very difficult for transits because of that.
The Mackinac and Nia Bay made it across Lake Superior by following open water. They knew where that open water was thanks to new technology aboard the Mackinac. The Mackinac is carrying an uplink to the main Coast Guard computer, which gives the captain a direct and immediate feed of satellite photos of Lake Superior. That shows where shifting ice has created open water.
It helped get the Mackinac here. It's certainly going to help ships get back across, and it may make the big difference in a relatively easy transit or a transit that just wouldn't go at all.
Knowing where open water is also helps to protect ships from the danger of running into heavy ice.
If they hit that, loaded with that much momentum, they can hit that and tear their bows open. So those are dangers for the Lakers.
At this point, the Coast Guard plans to escort a convoy of Northland taconite and coal ships through Lake Superior, leaving Thursday. Shipping experts say it's critical to get those products to the lower lakes as quickly as possible, as they're running out of stockpiles. How soon they get there will depend on high technology and Mother Nature.
It was south winds that opened those leads up. North winds could close them. So we're all waiting to see what Mother Nature's going to do to us.
By Lake Superior, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
The Duluth Economic Development Authority could vote on two changes that will directly affect Canal Park business. One of the changes includes building more hotels, and the other involves adding more parking space. DEDA Commissioner David Wheeler says Duluth should be accessible to its citizens and visitors.
We also want to be welcoming to the people who live here, and we're trying to strike a good balance, I think, between bringing more business in and developing an area that will be developed in a way that will be good for all citizens, as well as those who are making Duluth a temporary home.
Canal Park changes include moving the proposed site for a Hampton Inn behind Grandma's Restaurant to instead be built on the A&W Kettle and Sun site, and also add a 190-space parking lot behind Grandma's Restaurant in place of the hotel. Canal Park businessman Bill Meyerhoff says if the changes pass, it will be a definite plus for the business district.
Everything that's happening is positive. We need additional parking. I think that's a good move. I think that the relocation, for example, of the Hampton Inn to the A&W Kettle site is a far better site for the hotel.
For at least 40 years, highways like this one in Bayfield County have been open for truckers and loggers during spring breakup. But recently, the highway commissioner changed that.
And they've cut off the main arteries that all the little feeder roads take to get the wood out of the country.
Being that logging is one of the biggest employers in the area, drivers say that's not fair.
They still allow the milk trucks and the gas trucks and school buses and what have you haul their loads on the road. It's just they just ban the pulp trucks.
They've used these routes in the past so they could continue working and logging during the spring thaw. Their jobs are usually contracted before spring, so if their access to those roads is cut off, they can't work. And if they don't work, they say the entire community will suffer.
This isn't a handful by any means, and this is a small fraction of, or a small portion of what's actually out there as far as people that are affected by this, and it's a bigger issue than people want to think that it is.
Commissioner Larry Young says a weight restriction has been put on trucks because traffic is taking its toll on the county's highways. Howard Nicholson says truckers are just as concerned about damage heavy traffic creates on roads.
The loggers have a concern for the roads. They got to use them too. They don't want to tear them up. So there's got to be some form of compromise.
In the meantime, truckers and loggers are hoping strength in numbers will convince the commissioner to change his mind.
We'll go to the county board meeting and see what can be done, but the highway commissioner had mentioned that it was only a handful of people. It's quite obvious that this was a pretty big handful.
Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
already paid his. He don't want anybody else.
Numbers are from young adults, adult victims of date acquaintance rape. So I think it's a piece of both. I think we are becoming a more violent society, and there's research to back that up. And I also believe that we are getting better at reaching out to people and telling them that it's okay to talk about being a rape survivor, and it's okay to reach out for help.
The ice right now hasn't really changed much. It's shifted a lot because of the northwest or the north winds. With the plating out there is between 8 and 12 inches, and the wind rose up to 12 feet, which makes it difficult to pass.
They live in the sea in a pool. Their enemies are sharks, whales, other fish, and crabs.
Traditionally, writing is not something many elementary students look forward to doing. But with a free pizza party on the line, Moose Lake students are rushing to get those papers and pencils out. The program is called Writers of the Round Table, and the program's creator says it benefits all students involved.
I think it's gotten the kids excited about writing in general, and it's also made kids work a little bit harder, I think, so that they can be recognized as being on the Writers Round Table.
The students turn in their writing assignments, and the best writings are chosen to participate in a free pizza party at the end of the month. At the party, each writer is presented with a certificate of achievement. These incentives have students especially excited about their written assignments.
I had a goal set for me to be here. So when I was picked, there was another girl, her name was Melanie. She had a really good story too. And she didn't get it done on time, but I did, so I got to go here. If she would have been here, she probably would have been really good here too. And I have to help my friend, I have to say hi to my friend Philip, because he really helped me on this story too. And Mr. Farrow there, and my teacher, Mrs. Johnson.
The Munger Tavern off of Highway 2 in St. Louis County was burglarized on Thursday morning, February 15th. The burglars kicked in the side door to get inside. Sheriff deputies believe that the thieves were familiar with the business because they disabled the sensor alarm and removed a security camera. They also knew the combination to the safe, where they stole nearly $3,000 in coin and cash. An upstairs tenant heard two men talking around 2:30 in the morning, but assumed they were someone cleaning up after the tavern closed. Call Crime Stoppers if you know who the burglars are. You could receive a reward up to $1,000. You will also remain anonymous because you call us back to find out the progress of your information. We don't call you. Our numbers are 1-800. 974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH. That's 723-3683.
The International Bottled Water Association has repeatedly requested these new rules from the FDA to help us raise the standards for the entire industry.
Douglas County that we vary drastically from most other counties is reduction on also, because that certainly is long-term goal, and that's a long-term goal of many supervisors. Property tax, you had to be there, but this county was not in very good.
Nobody has come and said, what has Douglas County done to reduce property taxes because of the sales tax? Because we can answer that question. So that's what makes me so angry about this article, is nobody came up and asked us what was going on.
Require long-term planning. In order to achieve your goal, you make decisions. And we stress the importance that property tax relief is important, but it was strictly for property tax relief, and I think you have to analyze the operating expenses within the county. You can't look at a dollar value.
Will you encourage full participation? I guess I'm a lucky dictator in a white jelly.
One thing we'll try to do is see if there's some way that we can get through to these people or get people to run for office that are interested in the same goals that we are.
It is our role to do whatever we can to assist the parties, or what we would call parties or stakeholders, who are directly affected by this dispute and its consequences.
Bob Latterell and his family have been fishing, guiding, and canoeing on Moose Lake just outside of Ely since the 1940s. Over the years, they have seen numerous changes surrounding the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. Today, Bob is president of the Ely Outfitters Association. In the latest round of proposals, Latterell says his group won't be any part of Wellstone's mediation plan.
I feel we've gone through what the processes of getting public input on this. Over 300 pages of testimony was gotten at the field hearings this last summer in International Falls, and then in the fall again down in St. Paul. And to go over through the process again is very unnecessary, we believe.
Latterell says Wellstone's plan is just a stalling tactic. He says his group is in full support of resolving the conflict in the BWCAW, saying it will take Representative James Oberstar's and Senator Rod Grams's legislation to do that.
We've come out officially and supported those already, and they are very reasonable measures to correct some problems in the '78 bill.
Just down the road from the Laterals is Jeff Way of Bellens Resort. He's been on Moose Lake since 1978, the year of the BWCAW bill. He says the solution takes a common sense approach.
The bill that we came up with was a good bill. Now, in response, the other side has come up with a very radical bill that is just far-fetched. And to try to mediate between something that's commonsensical and something that's far-fetched way over on the other side, if we're supposed to come out of here with something in the middle, we're going to come out with less than we've got now. So it doesn't make any sense to us.
Both Lateral and Way feel the talking's been done. It's now time to make decisions for solutions. On the Boundary Waters, Ann Carroll, Channel 6 News.
School children around the Northland are starting summer vacation a little bit later than planned. The record snowfall and below freezing temperatures this year forced officials to cancel school. Now students and teachers are making up those days. The principal at Northwestern High School in Maple, Wisconsin can't remember having to cancel so many classes.
I've been here 18 years and I think this is the first time we've ever had to make any up.
Many schools in Wisconsin have to make up days due to weather. Bayfield, Maple, and Solon Springs all have to make up 2 days. Spooner has to make up 1 day, and Hurley and Mellon schools have to make up 5. Moose Lake, Barnum, and Proctor in Minnesota have to make up 2 days, and Willow River will make up 3. And many school districts added minutes onto their days so they wouldn't have to go into the summer.
I still am trying to figure out who's happy about it. I've seen lots of people are unhappy about it. I haven't seen anyone who's happy about it.
Surprisingly, many students don't seem to mind.
It's really no big deal because you don't do anything the last day except for take exams.
I understand that the state has requirements for a certain amount of school days, and I think it was kind of unfair that the seniors didn't have to make up the last day, but I understand that we have to make them up.
School officials say this year is unlike any other. Students and teachers will just have to wait a few extra days. In Maple, Wisconsin, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
And then there's one in the shop, right? Okay.
Well, this place was broke into the first part of April, and that was a mess job. They really messed it up pretty bad. So I'm just coming out of that mess. Now I got to start all over again. So I'm not too happy. But
does it scare you?
No, it doesn't scare me. It just irritates me that these kids can do this and get away with it. And
My primary objective is to get out to the site, take a look to make sure that I have all the pieces of the aircraft. Because of where the aircraft may have come apart and because of the winds at the time, some of the pieces might not be there.
They'd sit down for you, wouldn't they?
Oh yeah, he's gonna pick me up.
Before dialysis, the prospect for a patient with kidney failure was bleak. Now, thanks to improvements in dialysis and breakthroughs in biotechnology, kidney dialysis patients are living longer, healthier lives than ever dreamed possible.
Here! 3! Here! 4, 5.
You might never guess martial arts instructor Charles Roche is a dialysis patient. The development 6 years ago of the genetically engineered protein called Epogen has significantly improved his quality of life.
You can still travel, you can still exercise, you can still work. You just may have to change your schedule to come into dialysis and get dialyzed.
A new study in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology indicates patients who received the drug for the first time achieved improvements in overall vitality, physical functioning, social functioning, mental health, social life, hobbies, and satisfaction with sexual activity.
What our study has shown is that even with modest improvement in anemia, we're able to drastically improve the quality of life of the patients, which is always the ultimate goal of any form of therapy for any chronic disease.
Many dialysis patients are likely to experience severe anemia. With Epogen therapy, experts say anemia is often alleviated, allowing patients to resume more normal lives.
Anyone who's younger and doesn't have a systemic disease like diabetes should be able to lead essentially a normal life. They should be able to have a family, they should be able to have a job, they should be able to engage in sports activities, really should be able to function pretty much the way they would if they weren't chronically ill and on dialysis.
Doctors are advised to monitor patients on Epogen for hypertension, but the study indicates it's generally well tolerated. The study's findings should be reassuring news for the majority of Americans on kidney dialysis, since most of them are already receiving Epogen therapy. Here's to your health. Michelle Lee, Channel 6 News.
For a fact, because I've worked on every campaign since 1990. And then, from that, if you decide... That's the first thing you talk about. You know, in the last process, if all they do, my gosh, if all they do is send us to Washington and don't provide the support and don't provide the feedback and don't provide that patience, we're in trouble. We are in trouble as a country.
We got 2 crews on the bus. A crew is 20 people, and we're the 2 crew bosses, so we don't really know a lot. That's kind of, they tell you a little at a time. We've been kind of watching some of the fire activity, and we know they're having a lot of fire activity and a lot of wind and hot weather, so it's kind of reminding us a little bit of some of the activity we had last year, so we're
Lake County Sheriff's deputies were searching for 3 men thought to have burglarized a cabin on Lex Lake north of Beaver Bay. A neighbor saw the suspects drive away in a Chevy Chevette and provided authorities with a license plate number. The car contained stolen guns and stereo equipment. The men got a flat tire along Highway 61 and stopped at this gift store. When spotted by state troopers, the men fled on foot into these woods. That's when the search started, around noon on Sunday.
Well, we called out every one of our staff that we had and everyone that was available, and we probably had 15 of us out there at one time.
Officials searched on foot, in vehicles, and by air for 4 hours before they received their first tip from the Trico Town Mart in Two Harbors.
Well, I came back in and I talked to my fellow worker, and we decided to call the cops. I was at work and there's 2 suspicious-looking males sitting out behind the fence by the car wash.
Officials say the 2 men fit the descriptions of the suspects in the cabin burglary. The Sheriff's Department says the 3rd man was caught at 1 a.m. Monday at the same gas station. Another employee spotted the 3rd suspect and called police. All 3 had called the Duluth Cab Company for a ride, but instead took a ride at St. Louis County Jail.
People, especially in small communities, pay attention to strangers. They pay attention to what's going on.
Sheriff Hagen says these men might be part of other break-ins in the area, which might lead to more charges.
We've gotten calls of attempted break-ins other places in Lake County in the same time, but we're not sure if they're connected at this time.
Okay, so you know in Two Harbors, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
And you said what kind of items were taken from this cabin up at Lax Lake?
Things that you have to do to find out where it is, detect it, then in my case, they found it before it spread into any other part of my body. And so by having that early detection and treatment possibly saved my life, probably saved my life. For a year after that, I was in the hospital for some gallbladder and pancreatitis. And during that time in the hospital, they did
Yeah, I got it.
We're dedicating the house. The house is finished now. Last year we let people in just for sneak previews, but now it is finished. And we'll do a short program tonight, and then tomorrow we'll also have a munchkin reception.
It was almost like being buried alive. And I thought the house was on fire, and then I thought we were gonna die of being burnt. But the house wasn't on fire, and my husband here, he was able to crawl out, and so was I.
So it was your grandparents' house?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone there was related? You all lived?
Residents of this neighborhood have seen their share of crime, and it doesn't seem to stop. Duluth police were called to 725 East 5th Street Saturday, where a tenant found a decomposing body. Residents say they're afraid for themselves and their children.
And it wasn't so bad at first, you know, but now when you live here and you see what's going on in the neighborhood, it really gets to you. I mean, it really gets to me. I don't sleep with my windows open or anything because it's just been one thing after another.
But other residents say for the most part they live in a good neighborhood. Only parts of it see this type of crime.
My block on 6th Street and 8th, it's a nice part of the neighborhood. I never see anything, hear anything, just around here.
Several months ago, a decomposed body was found next door to this resident's house. He says sometimes incidents happen and overall good people live there.
I know pretty much most of the neighborhood's people that live here and have known them, and they come out on the street and talk and share with each other, and we get along pretty good overall. Like I say, with this incident happening, who knows what's behind it.
Some residents say they need to communicate more, and hopefully it will make their neighborhood safer.
I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I said, you know, maybe if our neighbors would start talking to each other instead of, it's almost like everybody just stays in their own little world, maybe they would have found this body a lot sooner. And, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's scary.
Five-year-old Greg Goodman plays Legos with his sister. He's a shy but happy little boy with a problem that could kill him.
His face was swollen, his lips were swollen, the whites of his eyes were like bulging out of his head. He didn't have one hive, he had thousands all over his entire body. I couldn't even look at him. He really looked like a monster. You couldn't even recognize your own son.
Greg Goodman could have died from his allergic reaction to peanut butter in a cracker. 14-year-old Carrie Gordon did die. She was on a school canoe trip in Canada when she unknowingly ate a sandwich that contained traces of peanut butter. She died in 3 minutes.
Though they had tried a lot of different procedures and were giving her CPR, which they apparently continued to do far beyond the time that really at that point she had passed away.
Peanuts and peanut butter, the most innocuous seeming foods, but a small percentage of the population is dangerously allergic. If they eat it, they go into anaphylactic shock. Their windpipes swell so much they can suffocate, and the allergy can appear for the first time at any age.
I had a young man who was 40 who had a reaction.
First time?
First time.
People with peanut allergies worry about every bite they take. Peanuts are buried in all kinds of foods, from the obvious to the not so obvious, like breakfast cereals. Cooking something in peanut oil can cause a severe reaction. Utensils that merely touch a peanut can cause a severe reaction. And since this, peanut butter, is the main ingredient of most little kids' diets, parents with children who have a peanut allergy are deathly afraid.
It's terrifying sometimes, especially terrifying when, as he gets older and he goes out on his own.
Just how sensitive are these people?
So even breathing it can cause allergic reaction.
You cannot outgrow a peanut allergy. The only solution for these people is always carrying a hypodermic needle filled with adrenaline. That stops the allergic reaction. And constant vigilance about the food they eat, hoping their next bite won't kill them.
What's at stake here is 525 living wage benefit jobs. This is a huge impact on this area. And also what's at stake is quality care.
Just a few months ago, below freezing temperatures swept across the Northland and took its toll. Now it's at least 140 degrees hotter, and some Duluthians are loving it.
Oh, it doesn't even feel like we're in Duluth. This is just wonderful. It's too good to be true down here today.
We've been freezing and complaining about the cold, so it's about time.
Yes, we came here to relax and enjoy the beautiful day out in the sun and get some tan on these white legs.
Many have decided to take advantage of the heat, less the humidity, whether swim in the bay, hanging out on the beach, or just playing a game of volleyball. And they're hoping the heat lasts.
I think it's beautiful. I can't believe it's this warm this late in the year, or in the day actually.
I just hope we have a long fall, that, the weather stays with us. Hopefully, this is great.
Vacationers say they came up just in time to catch the great weather.
We think it's cool. We're from the cities. This is like a cool down for us. It's been 95 and humid, so 85 and sunny is wonderful.
Summer only began a few weeks ago, and 80-degree temperatures are already here. So look forward to possibly hotter weather on the way. In Duluth, Tamika Snowden, Channel 6 News.
And then there are some red folding chairs in case you need to sit down.
We are expecting about a 5% increase in tourism over what we saw in 1995. Duluth is expecting about 3.5 million visitors this year. That would include about 90,000 convention delegates.
We've received a copy of the complaint 96-126. I discussed the charges.
In most child sexual assault cases, we don't actually catch the person in the act, which is almost what happened here. The mother of the child came upon them in his apartment and literally had to break down the door to get her daughter back, and the defendant was found naked in the apartment.
Options the district could explore, is that true?
There are a number of options that the district can explore, and we're going to be if the district is going to try and put this burden on the property tax, we're going to fight that very, very hard. We're going to meet with the county commissioners. We're going to also meet with select interest groups like the seniors and so on.
Like a tornado.
This is what residents heard and saw this weekend when high waters rushed through homes near Highway 61. Ed Morris lives off Spruce Court Road. Rod Falk is his neighbor up the street. They both suffered flood damage and say they've never seen anything like this. Apparently some dams had broken on the other side of Highway 61 when the water came rushing through this wooded area, hit the railroad tracks, washed out the ground beneath. That's when the water headed for Ed and Rod's house. A 10-foot wall of water came rushing toward their houses, carrying railroad ties and other debris with it. The water broke branches, ripped shreds off their foundations, and knocked down anything in its way. The water was building up at Ed's house, and his family was scared.
We were getting ready to evacuate. If it got any higher in the windows, we were going to get out of here.
Rod Falk has lived in this house for over 20 years. This is something he never expected.
When you're retired, you don't have the money to go and fix all this stuff.
Ed and Rod both say their insurance companies won't pay for the damages. Ed called the city of Duluth and the Scenic Railroad. They say they can't help him, but the city did tell him federal and state disaster funds may soon be available.
What do? You never had anything like this. You're not in a flood area, so.
Off Old Highway 61, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
Groups around the country. So I don't think this Congress or any other Congress is going to pass this legislation. It is so clearly anti-federal government.
Mike Furtman opposes increasing motor use in the Boundary Waters wilderness, but other Northlanders feel differently.
Good debate. I just hope that the debate is focused on a factual level and not so much on the emotional level that some of the wilderness preservation groups have tried to keep it on it.
A Senate subcommittee gets its first look at changes to the BWCA proposed by Senator Rod Grams this Thursday. The bill reopens 3 portages to motors, creates a new local management council, and eliminates the need for some permits. One of the key disputes is the idea of having a local management council set policy for the federally owned wilderness.
It's supposedly to give people more say in how these federal lands are managed, but if you look at the makeup of the management councils, it gives less say.
I guess I was a little disappointed to see that they don't feel like our local elected officials, our state elected officials, tribal elected officials, and others shouldn't have a voice in how the Boundary Waters is managed.
The Senate Subcommittee on Forests and Public Land Management will hear the testimony. Final decisions will not come out of Thursday's hearing. It's strictly a chance for people to voice their opinions.
Today we're going to do 40 different projects in the community, and our purpose is to accomplish good at the agencies and to give people in the community an opportunity to see what happens in the agencies that are funded by United Way.
Is there there's not an unopened one on the floor down here? I couldn't afford a staffer for $3,000.
That's right.
Now they're sorry.
Compound right there, that's green.
Yeah, so maybe
I'm gonna shoot at.
We're running out of it.
That's what he is, and if people respect him, he's got a very good perspective on both sides of this issue. Really respect, because he's never had. I think everybody would like to see it finished. I think people are kind of saying, look, we have a town full of guests that are here that we're trying to be gracious hosts to, and we have time to go away from that. We are very concerned, okay? We're hopeful that we can resolve this, but we have something wonderful happening here. We want to keep it going.
Could hear the winds just gusting all through the house, and it sounded like a train coming over your house. Just amazing, and afraid to look out because it was all light out and wondering if it was safe to go or not.
Television coverage is important only when what it is covering is important. Then, television coverage can make history move much faster.
excited about being here?
Certainly, yes.
Marta, are you excited to be in Atlanta?
Yes, I am, certainly. Look.
They are living proof that miracles, through the help of modern medicine, in fact do happen. Proof that what was thought impossible only years ago is not. They are the first bowel transplant recipients in Minnesota and among the first in the world.
It's just been almost like a dream. Now I can finally see myself getting back to a normal or semi-normal active life.
Life for David Tillery changed dramatically on his 16th birthday when a car crash left him in a wheelchair with a broken back and severe intestinal injuries. Last month, more than a year after the accident, surgeons removed a 6-foot segment of his father's small bowel, transplanting it into the teenager. It was the first father-to-son bowel transplant in the world and one of only 3 known living-related donor bowel transplants, period.
After the accident, I didn't think he was going to live. He was pretty much out of it there for 6 to 8 weeks, and now he's really, we're looking forward to fishing again.
I think that's probably the best gift anyone could ever give to someone else. I mean, he basically gave me the gift of life.
Doctors say they had confidence to operate on Tillery because of their success with 33-year-old Carl Knudsen, who received a cadaver bowel transplant just weeks earlier. 90% of his small bowel have been removed in multiple surgeries for Crohn's disease, and having battled the illness for 25 years, his optimism remains guarded.
It's such a big process and such a big step right now. You know, it's just like getting through the next few weeks or whatever it was, you know, that's ahead. It's just like you're just trying to get through week by week.
Because it's such a new procedure, the prognosis for either patient is difficult to determine. Currently, the longest functioning bowel transplant on record is 6 years. But other, more recent recipients are still living, and ultimately doctors hope to achieve a success rate of 80%.
I feel better because I feel better like I feel like my old self again. When I went back to work, everything just began to just fall in place again, you know.
Maintenance facility is close to completion. The hangar doors are expected to be open for the first plane by November 3rd. Larry Monfort came just in time. He's been hired as the base's first director. He's been with Northwest for 16 years, spending most of his career in Atlanta's maintenance base.
What led to my being selected here was the fact that I was recognized for leadership in that role in Atlanta, and this opportunity became available, and it was something that I thought would be a good challenge for me.
Monfort says this is a positive move for everyone.
It's a tremendous opportunity for me, first of all. Secondly, what it means for the company is that Northwest now has an opportunity to be a major part of a new community.
Others at Northwest also think he was a good choice for the job.
Because with 16 years of experience at Northwest, you can't really get that kind of quality candidate too often. So for us, it was a great match and a great fit.
He says he loves the area and says our cold winters won't bother him.
one of my favorite sayings is, I've never been cold, and I don't think I will be cold, so the best place for me to try that is Duluth.
We'll talk to him in a few months if we can thaw him out. In Duluth, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News. A grand jury returned an indictment last October of first-degree murder against Emilio Mendoza in the death of Denise Daly in 1978. Daly was allegedly pushed from a truck on Highway 50.
There was extraneous material given to a grand jury while they're in session. You can't do that.
On that basis, Judge Donovan Frank overturned a previous judge's decision and dismissed charges against Mendoza and Crowley.
The judge didn't rule on the other issues, though. Mind you, we had a whole list of problems in the indictment.
Both defense attorneys say the charges should have been dropped anyway because their clients are innocent.
The lady is innocent, and it's something that that we're very proud of and very happy about, and I think the community should be. Anytime an innocent person is not charged or the charges are thrown out, it's reason for celebration.
You told him?
I've spoken to him this morning by phone, and he understands.
It's not common for one judge to overturn another's decision. Carleton County District Attorney Marv Catola was unavailable for an on-camera interview, but says he is frustrated and disappointed. He says he might appeal. In Carleton, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
We don't think that residential is necessarily the highest and best use of the property for ourselves or for the neighbors or for the city. But if that's our only alternative, then that's what we plan to do.
We're not out pushing. All right. Okay, Chris, nice to meet you, Beth.
It is hot and it's humid here in Atlanta, no question about it. So you can see behind me the beautiful skyline, also the satellite dishes. Millions and millions and millions of people will be watching these games, and of course they'll be covered by thousands and thousands of media throughout the world. As you can see, preparations underway for the Olympics not far off, and we'll be covering it, of course, on KBJR and having all of the events for you here on NBC. Reporting in Atlanta, Tom Hansen, Channel 6 News. It is hot and it's humid here in Atlanta, no question about it. So you can see behind me the beautiful skyline, also the satellite dishes. Millions and millions and millions of people will be watching these games, and of course they'll be covered by thousands and thousands of media throughout the world. Plenty of Northlanders are taking part, not as athletes per se, but also as race judges, race officials. For instance, Duluthians Bob Buchanan and Eric Skadsberg will be working the canoeing or kayaking and canoeing races, and Skadsberg will be a judge, Buchanan will be a race official. Patty Rolfe, the volleyball coach at UMD, she'll be judging volleyball, she'll be doing lines for the volleyball competition here in Atlanta. As you can see, preparations underway for the Olympics not far off, and we'll be covering it, of course, on KBJR and having all of the events for you here on NBC. Reporting from Atlanta, Tom Hansen, Channel 6 News.
It's nothing, yeah. It's nothing. I can tell you, I just came from the site an hour ago where this is all displayed. And it's very, very minimal. Very minimal. And it's very, very minimal.
But just kind of get together among yourselves and pick a canoe and get as many as you think you need in order to carry it, okay?
They came 60 strong, most from outside Minnesota, lugging canoes in the sweaty Washington heat to prove a point.
It's really important that we protect boundary waters and keep it free for more motorized lakes up there than there already are.
We wanted to help hold this rally to draw attention to the fact that these are priceless public lands that are owned and loved by people across the country.
The biggest worry here, local councils to help manage the area. Preservationists fear it's a dangerous precedent to take national parks away from national control.
It's not local input, it's local control. They have the ability to veto decisions by the Secretary of the Interior or the Secretary of Agriculture, depending on the park or the wilderness.
Right now, bills to open up the BWCA and ensure more local input are basically treading water here in Congress, but don't expect their sponsors to roll over under this kind of pressure.
The Oberstar bills are about restoring the commitments made by the likes of the late Senator Hubert Humphrey, who pledged that wilderness designation would not hurt northern Minnesota.
Still, these preservationists say Congress is on the verge of hurting northern Minnesota and vow to continue their protests. Bob Beard for Channel 6 News, Washington.
With continued light winds and low waves, the recovery effort accelerated out at the crash site. Working there now is the USS Grasp, a Navy salvage ship that can raise the 60-foot section of Flight 800 found yesterday. Also searching now are 24 other Navy, Coast Guard, and police boats, 9 aircraft, including helicopters, and more scuba divers ready to descend when instruments and cameras spot key pieces of the wreckage or the bodies of victims. The top priorities remain finding the black boxes from Flight 800 and identifying bodies.
We are actively working with French, Italian, Swiss, and Norwegian doctors in an effort to assist us in identifying the remaining victims.
Meanwhile today, TWA officials say they can find nothing to help this investigation after an exhaustive check of the records kept on their 747.
As they get into the clues, I think it seems to be becoming less likely that it indeed was maintenance, but maintenance has not been ruled out.
Conflicting reports persist about testing being conducted on the right wing tip from the downed jumbo jet found last week and on the 100-plus bodies that have been recovered. White House Chief of Staff Leon Panetta said residue of explosives has been detected, but law enforcement sources caution the tests as yet are not conclusive. I'm Steve Handelsman, NBC News, Long Island.
Report, and we sent that on to all organizations.
asking you to be just as concerned, just as dedicated and supportive of our upcoming efforts to improve teaching and learning as you have been tenacious and supportive of our efforts to balance budgets and bring accountability to our organization.
Tourism. It's one of the city of Duluth's biggest industries. This year alone, nearly 3.5 million visitors will come to the city. Some of those people may never have come to Duluth without the help of the World Wide Web.
And one thing that we're able to do now with a web page is reach visitors all around the world that we aren't necessarily able to do with our advertising dollars that we have.
Since the Convention and Visitors Bureau brought their web page online in January, they have seen a steady rise in the number of visits or hits to the page since its inception.
Our web page has about 1,500 hits a week, about anywhere from 6,000 to 7,000 hits a month.
There's a wide variety of information in the Convention and Visitors Bureau webpage. Surfers can find everything from lodging, shopping, and even unique attractions to the city. Some of these sites even have their own web pages. From there, they can email the CVB for more information. But the real question is, did they get their money's worth? We wanted to find out what people who had gotten their information about Duluth off the web had to say about their trips. Since I couldn't talk to them personally, I decided to do the next best thing. I contacted several tourists via email who had visited Duluth and asked them about their trip. Linda Irving from Phoenix said that what the CVB webpage did do was allow her to immediately request Duluth area information. She went on to say that the web allows her to see firsthand where she plans to travel and what to expect. Contacting via telephone does not provide her with the visual guide that assists her in determining where she will spend her family and quality time. Scott Notbart from St. Paul said that this was the first time he had used the web to get information mailed to him. It also allowed him to find lodging without having to make a lot of long-distance phone calls. He was able to find plenty of information on things to do, places to see, and eat.
One thing that the homepage allows us to do is maybe get the word out about Duluth for people who have maybe never even heard of Duluth, Minnesota before. And so that's kind of exciting.
And she's right. The CVB has received email from nearly all 50 states and several countries, such as Hungary, Germany, and Japan. Duluth is not the first city with such a web page, and it certainly won't be the last.
This is kind of the wave of the future, and so we jumped on board and have been real happy with the successes that we've seen.
On the internet, Chris Hussey, Channel 6 News.
If they ever need to move, the Mendesh family figures having their own working balance beam in the family room ought to be a great selling point. Every day, their home is overtaken with flying objects. Elizabeth is 7, Emily is 10. And besides being budding gymnasts, they are also very good at interior design, making the most out of their living space.
You go like this and go backwards like a flip.
They call this one the family room back tuck. Yay! This dynamic duo has done quite well in local gymnastic competitions thanks to their sponsors.
We probably spend, I don't know, maybe $4,000 a year on it.
They are the parents who pay.
Emily is there 4 times a week. She's the one that's there 4 times a week for 12 hours, and that's a good chunk of money. She's paying for the individual coach time, as a group with her team. And Elizabeth is there twice a week. And hers is, a set, it's like, close to $200 for about a 2 to 3 month session.
But parents like Judy say all the money and all the time, the countless hours in transit to daily practice sessions, do have a payoff outside the gym.
I look at the confidence that she's gained through doing this and the self-assurance and just being physically fit. I mean, it's incredible how strong they are.
Sometimes I get a little tired at it, but it's fun.
Whoa!
It happened right after the Jack Mack and the Heart Attacks band finished playing. A pipe bomb filled with nails and screws exploded, killing 2 people and injuring over 100. Gail Mason is the chief flight nurse with St. Luke's and Superior and is a part of a medical team at the Olympic Stadium. She says this act of terrorism has everyone on edge.
We're all here as volunteers to do a job, and you know, it's the spirit of the Olympics and everybody's carrying on, but everybody's very cautious.
Since the bombing, she says security has beefed up considerably.
After that happened, I guess they called in all kinds of security. They shut down the Olympic Stadium. Even the cleaners couldn't get in. And apparently they swept it 3 times with bomb-sniffing dogs.
As many know, the Olympic Committee has brought together the tightest security team ever in Olympic history, and many Northlanders say that they're surprised that something like this could happen.
I was really shocked. You think you're watching it and you're listening to it, and you're wondering if this could actually be, you know, really in your country.
It's scary when it comes down to this, when it, you know, you're in this public place and, you know, there's security and you expect to be safe, and you're not.
And many say this incident may hurt the memory of the Atlanta Olympics.
I think people are going to think more about the bombing than they're going to about the Olympics. I think it's going to overshadow it quite a bit.
In Duluth, Tamika Snowden, Channel 6 News.
Just out of earshot of the pristine lakes, just beyond the quiet forest, just above the hum of the wildlife, you can hear it if you listen closely. The bitter, angry debate over the boundary waters that has never been quelled in 20 years. Meet the team that wants to change Minnesota history. These federal mediators will put frustrated homeowners, upset business owners, and testy environmentalists in one room and hope that in a few months they can emerge with a decision. They'd like it to succeed where legislation hasn't.
We don't claim that this is better. We claim it's different.
But is it different enough to forge agreement? Are some people so battle-weary they're finally ready to come halfway?
We're going into this, I think everybody who goes into it's going to feel that they have something to lose. But if that's how everybody feels, then you don't get anywhere.
And what we heard from people, almost regardless of their positions on specific issues, was that they were tired of that they needed to put this behind them, that they need to get on with life.
But while life has always been serene in the boundary waters, it has never been dull, and divisiveness is almost a part of the natural landscape.
Puffy clouds dot the skies, and the thermometer is nudging a humid 80 degrees. High above. The temperature decreases rapidly as you move up into the atmosphere. Even on a summer day, the readings at 40,000 feet can be as low as -60. Warm air rises, and the larger the difference between the surface temperature and the upper level reading, the faster it climbs. This column of warm, humid air will generate a moderately entertaining thunderstorm, but it won't knock your socks off. For this system to grow out of control, you need to add energy. This comes in 2 forms, either a front or an upper-level storm system. These give the rising column of air a boost, which is the meteorological equivalent of slapping a big turbocharger on that family station wagon. Now you have a variety of troubles that can come your way. The first will be the potential for large hail. The updraft is now strong enough to carry raindrops back into the freezing temperatures aloft. These rapidly freeze into hailstones. Each time they circulate, they become a little larger until the hailstone becomes too heavy to lift. Here we are, a pleasant summer afternoon around 4 o'clock. Some puffy clouds dot the skies, and the thermometer is nudging a humid 80 degrees. High above, though, there are changes occurring that will alter everyone's evening plans. The temperature decreases rapidly as you move up into the atmosphere. Even on a summer day, the readings at 40,000 feet can be as low as -60. Warm air rises, and the larger the difference between the surface temperature and the upper level reading, the faster it climbs. This column of warm, humid air will generate a moderately entertaining thunderstorm, but it won't knock your socks off. For this system to grow out of control, you need to add energy. This comes in two forms, either a front or an upper-level storm system. These give the rising column of air a boost, which is the meteorological equivalent of slapping a big turbocharger on that family station wagon. Now you have a variety of troubles that can come your way. The first will be the potential for large hail. The updraft is now strong enough to carry raindrops back into the freezing temperatures aloft. These rapidly freeze into hailstones. Each time they circulate, they become a little larger until the hailstone becomes too heavy to lift. Another concern will be powerful winds. These are generated as the rain evaporates into drier air underneath the advancing storm. This air becomes much heavier in a very short period of time, and it plunges to the surface. After falling several thousand feet, it picks up tremendous velocity and can devastate a wide area with straight-line wind damage. Many incidents originally believed to have been tornadoes have later proven to be the work of these winds. At the top of the severe heap is the tornado. These rare and frightening systems can have winds over 300 miles an hour and are able to level a town in a matter of seconds. For a thunderstorm to produce a tornado, several factors have to be in place. First, you need all of the conditions for a severe thunderstorm. Then the atmosphere has to have winds moving in different directions at different levels. This is known as shear and is considered the vital ingredient in tornado formation. Fortunately, the latest generation of weather radars have a much better ability to identify the potentially dangerous storms. Although we'll never be able to control Mother Nature, at least we can get out of her way. George Kessler, Channel 6 News.
Jason Hewitt has traveled the world playing baseball. It's taken him here to Atlanta. Not long ago, it took him to Duluth, Minnesota to play in the Northern League with the Duluth Superior Dukes under Howie Bedell. He also played with Steve Hinton from Australia. The Dukes paid the expenses for those two Australian players. Their salary went back to the Australian national team so they could remain eligible for amateur athletics and partake in things like this, like the Olympics. He's now playing second base for Australia. They lost in the opening round game to Cuba by a score of 19-8 in 8 innings. They lost again to the Netherlands 14-6. They bounced back from that. They beat Japan 9-6, and then they lost their fourth overall game, and that was to Italy by a score of 12-8. Now, of course, the next Summer Olympics will be in Sydney, Australia, and of course, Hewitt would like to be playing for Australia when the home games are right there in Sydney. It's made an adjustment for him because now they're back playing with a metal bat. If you recall, the Northern League teams used the wooden bats, and he had to make that adjustment when he came back from Duluth. Now he's using the metal bats here in Atlanta. And again, Hewitt has traveled the world playing baseball, and it's taken him here to Atlanta. Reporting from the Centennial Games, I'm Tom Hansen, KBJR Sports.
The key ingredient for violent storms is heat, and as any Northlander can tell you, heat is something we tend to lack here. However, when July rolls around and our warmest temperatures of the year arrive, our storm season starts in earnest. When the National Weather Service alarm goes off, the Channel 6 Weather Center snaps into action thanks to the efforts of a large volunteer force spread across the region. The watches and warnings you see on your TV during severe weather come in part from the efforts of Northland amateur radio enthusiasts who are part of the National Weather Service's Skywarn network.
I am one of the people that do take net control when we are contacted by the National Weather Service. We have 10 amateur radio operators in the Duluth Superior area that we call the emergency response team. And one of us will call the Weather Service and ask what they need.
What the Weather Service needs most often is someone to act as their eyes in the field. The Amateur Radio Club has over 700 pairs of those eyes available, and they have spotted some severe weather.
Driving up I-35 through some severe weather recently, I've checked into the weather net and given the road report. It's good to check in and let them know where the line of thunderstorms start and when they end.
I've had reports of funnel clouds that I've trafficked in, and also hail and trees uprooted, all kinds of, well, pretty much everything that can go wrong.
The National Weather Service is grateful for the help these volunteer spotters give. If a Skywarn spotter calls in a funnel cloud at 8 p.m., for example, the Weather Service can verify it with a Doppler sweep and have a warning issued by 8:03. In just a few more minutes, we broadcast meteorologists can have that warning on the air. It's a team effort that is meant to save lives.
And if this can help to transfer a bulletin to the public so that the public is aware that there is imminent danger and a person can seek safety, it could help to save a life, and that's basically why we work with Skywarn.
If you're interested in becoming part of the Skywarn system, well, it's really quite easy. In fact, even I did it. Anyone can earn a Skywarn certificate, but to join the Arrowhead Radio Amateurs Network, you need a ham license. Club President Doug Nelson has the details on Skywarn and the radio license, and you can call him at the number shown on your screen. From the Channel 6 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Dave Anderson. I'm meteorologist Dave Anderson.
The controversy continues over this piece of property on Central Entrance in Duluth. Since plans for a mall were defeated in a citywide vote last April, property owners have been working on a new use for their land. But a plan to put in 200 or more single-family homes doesn't appeal to some neighbors either.
It's going to be high-density housing. The majority of the homes will probably end up double-wide trailers for affordability. And the traffic, the increase in traffic on Anderson Road.
Developer Dave Goldberg says he would prefer to see a mall on his property, but since that won't work, his next best option is the housing development.
I've been owner of the property for 16 years, and I'm in the housing business anyway, and it makes sense to me if we can't get the best use of the property that we'd go to the alternative, which would be a residential development.
The residents who met with the mayor this morning are in the process of taking an informal door-to-door survey of their neighbors who live on Trinity and Anderson Roads. So far, they say, it seems the majority of those neighbors have changed their minds and would now support the Opus Mall. Mayor Gary Doty says the referendum killing the mall was clear, but if the neighbors change their minds, he says he will support their efforts to go after the Opus Mall again.
My office and the city councils will abide by that. But if the neighbors in the area want to pursue that on their own, they're obviously free to do that.
But another informal poll of residents by the group Friends of Miller Hill finds the majority of residents still support residential development over commercial. The mayor says he's willing to meet with anyone who wants to talk about the property. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
Hundreds of people came out to celebrate the 18th year of the Sobriety Powwow. A member of the Fond du Lac Reservation and one of the innovators of this event is celebrating 29 years of sobriety.
We figure it was a way of celebration of sobriety, a release from the bondage of alcoholism that many of us were in its grips.
Others say it's a way to get back to their roots.
It's a way of healing and praying and celebrating my Indianness and our culture and seeing everyone and visiting.
The celebration is filled with music, dancing, costume, and special ceremonies. There are also arts and crafts on display and food. Many of the costumes seen are handmade. We ran into a little princess who told us all about her dress.
My cousin made these moccasins, my leggings, and then my dress and my belt, and then my crown. And then these are some pooms. This lady gave me this dress. She gave me these pooms too. She made 2 dresses for me, and that's about it about my dress.
This man says his costume represents that he comes from the Eagle clan. He says the powwow is a way to learn more about his culture.
I'll just learn new things from my elders. They teach me, passing down, like my native language and culture.
Powwow officials say the celebration is not only for those fighting alcoholism.
Not only the people who are the recovering people, but also the people who are surrounding them, who give them continuous support as far as their sobriety, and to the community at large. And this is why we have so many children here, so many adults and senior people, and it's a celebration of life.
In Sawyer, Tamika Snowden, Channel 6 News.
I got to get a search warrant to get into the house to deal with the crime scene. Just one of those constitutional issues. But we hope to get him out of there with negotiation, and that's what we're dealing with right now.
Okay.
Pertussis is whooping cough, which is a disease caused by a highly contagious bacteria that is mainly a problem of young infants. It's a disease that causes children to cough, to have spells of coughing that increase so that a spell can occur every hour in the height of the disease. The complications can be pneumonia, they can be central nervous system problems.
Brad Voorhees was arrested at Thompson Hill after telling police he shot his estranged wife. The body of Carolyn Seitz Voorhees was discovered on the front yard of this home where she cared for 2 disabled adults. Criminal records show her estranged husband has a history of domestic abuse. One incident where he threatened to kill his girlfriend. A coordinator from the Domestic Abuse Intervention Program says there are warning signs to this type of behavior.
I also think that early signs might be extreme controlling behavior and jealousy. People mistaking jealousy as love, and that, oh, he must care about me, and when actually it's just another means of control. And
police say that Carolyn and Brad were in the process of a divorce. Domestic abuse experts say that's the most volatile time in a relationship, especially if that person needs control.
sometimes that ends up being suicidal, sometimes it ends up being homicidal behavior, but oftentimes there's a lot of severe injuries that happen at that time. I think that people need to pick up on the warning signs.
If the warning signs are there, experts say it could escalate quickly to violence.
It may be verbal at first and going to emotional and spiritual abuse later on, and if that still doesn't get the person what they want, then they'll exercise some kind of physical control.
Experts say that domestic violence impacts everyone in the community.
This isn't just about one woman getting murdered. That what affects one person in a relationship like this affects our whole community. And that it's important for us to remember that.
In Duluth, Tamika Snowden, Channel 6 News.